And Ava, I think I'll ask everybody to stay on mute, right? Because that's not necessarily disabled, right? Okay.
We don't need our video, right?
And Ava, can you manually put people on mute if they're not aware of that? Can you do that?
We should put it on.
Okay, I think we're all in. How exciting. It's like everybody just got in the boat and we're going to go on a trip here. Let's see. So it's about 8 minutes after 5. I think we're going to go ahead and get started. So my first order of business is to let everyone know that we're recording this. So if for any reason you don't want to be recorded, that's totally fine. You can turn off your video and change your black screen to say Zoom magic hour, and then you won't be on there. And the other note is to say, please, those of you that are joining us from outside CCA, we're going to have each student present for 10 minutes, each artist present for 10 minutes, and then Suzanne and Lucchesa and myself and the student will be in conversation, and everyone else is welcome to join us by participating in the chat, but we won't have an open kind of audio question and answer, but we'll be watching the chat. And the spirit of the evening is meant to be celebratory and positive, and get to see the work of these 4 young, amazing artists. So my name is Nathan Lynch, and I am the chair of the ceramics and glass programs. I'm gonna say welcome to all of you, and I'm gonna read our CCA land acknowledgement, and then I'll make a couple of other introductions, and then we'll get started. California College of the Arts campuses are located in Huichin and Yalamo, also known as Oakland and San Francisco, respectively, on the unceded territories of Chochenyo and Ramaytush Ohlone peoples, who have continuously lived upon this land since time immemorial. We recognize the historic discrimination and violence inflicted upon Indigenous peoples in California and the Americas, including their forced removal from ancestral lands and the deliberate and systematic destruction of their communities and culture. CCA honors Indigenous peoples, past, present, and future, here and around the world, and we wish to pay respect to local elders, including those of the lands from which you are joining us virtually today. If you are unsure of whose land you are currently residing upon, we encourage you to visit native-land.ca. All right, so as I mentioned earlier, my name is Nathan Lynch. I work in the ceramics program, and I've been here at CCA for about 20 years. During those 20 years, I've had the pleasure of working with my friend and colleague, Suzanne Cockrell, who's joining us. Suzanne is the chair of Individualized and Sculpture. And the topic of, I led a senior projects class, actually 2 senior projects classes. And much of the conversation during the semester was about life after school and what's next, and how to develop one's work and one's career as an artist, one's life as an artist, more broadly. And I'm really tickled and delighted that one of our most prolific and fine recent graduates, Lucchesa Verissimo, is here to join us. Lucchesa is an artist who I think almost all the fine arts faculty would point to as someone who's doing it well, who's living her her art life after school with great success. So thanks for joining us, Lakeda. Okay, so as I said before, we have 4 artists who are each going to have 10 minutes. And so we're going to go ahead and start with Sophie Smith. And I'm going to hand it over to you, Sophie. Before I let Sophie have the screen, I just want to say I had one senior projects class that was all students that I knew well, and I have this other group, and all these artists were new to me. So I just want to say to you artists that I met in January, what a pleasure it was, and how much I've enjoyed getting to know you and your work. And I want to tell everybody else, if you are ever competing for anything, if you're ever giving a presentation, you should always invite Sophie, because she's the best person at cheering for other people. I got to tell you that. So that's just a quick tip. You want to invite Sophie Smith to your athletic events and presentations. Okay, now you can start, Sophie.
Thanks, Nathan. I couldn't have said it better myself. Okay, so my name is Sophie Smith. I am graduating from the sculpture department. Thank you all for coming. Let's get into it. Uh-oh. So to start, I'm going to give a little context for my work. I am from Los Angeles, California, and I am definitely like in the throes of understanding how this is impacting and shaping my artistic practice. And there's 2 points that I want to make that talk about this. The first being that I am greatly a part of the Los Angeles feeling healing culture. Therapy, mental well-being, and the path to mental well-being were all very much so destigmatized for me. And I say this because I make work that is about myself and is a projection of the decrepit little thoughts that like rot away at my brain. And I think that this is impacted by where I grew up. And then the other side that I want to talk about is that LA is notoriously superficial, which has me thinking about objectification and what it means to exist in a body, and bodies as objects. And I think that as a woman, this is something that I've dealt with. I think that it is reflected in my upbringing, and I think also being a person brought up in the age of social media. So I'm asking myself some questions. There's a question exploration. So bodies as objects, I'm exploring what is gained and what is lost in the process of turning animate into inanimate, which is what I do as the maker of objects, as a sculptor. So onto that, I am also exploring what gives an object power. I've been thinking a lot about power and hierarchy recently. I've been recently looking into religious and royal art of the Gothic and Renaissance time period. I've been drawn to this time for these objects' ability to command power through ornateness and collective belief. And I think that this parallels the values of Los Angeles a lot. And I'm also exploring how these 2 visual languages connect to each other. So I had my senior thesis show in at the end of March. It was called Heavy's the Head. I'm gonna take you through some slides of the show and then talk about some of the individual pieces more in depth. So the first piece is the titular piece of the show. It's called Heavy's the Head, Don't Worry, We'll All Be Dead. This is my big sticky throne. And for this, it started off as an exploration of viewing inadequacy through the lens of the perils of power. And as I was making this piece and exploring with different materials and working with the materials that I chose, I couldn't help but think about how this piece probably just like shaved off like 20 years off of Earth's timeline. So I was also thinking a lot about the end of the world, and I realized that there was this big parallel with everything that's going on with the state of the world. I see the world ending with a big piss competition for power. And so for this, a takeaway is that I'm really interested in exploring the parallels between internal and global, and playing into that. This piece is, I would like to say it's my first ceramic sculpture. For this, I was interested in exploring the hierarchy of objects themselves. I was thinking about how if you had a big sculpture that like moved around and like lit up and spinned and punched things, you would choose to ignore the power cord that is giving it life, because it's not a part of the aesthetic vision. But what happens when you create a piece that doesn't have any apparent function but has this cord? Does it raise the status of the cord from something invisible to something integral to the sculpture? And I just have to say that there's like nothing going on inside of the sculpture. There are no lights, no bells, no whistles. The cord has no electrical function, but the piece would not function without the cord. So here is, some more professional shots of that. This next piece is, I'm going to talk about the ladder, which I made during the pandemic when I had to leave school and return to my familial home. And it is made up of relics that I sourced from my childhood bedroom. I think of this piece for its directionality as both a means of entering and fleeing, and seeking refuge and running away from. And I'm also interested in how materials can gain power through history, both personal and just the impact that time and relation has on material. Here is when it was installed at my family home. This piece is my oldest piece that was in the show. I include this to say that I think I have two sides as a maker. One more pink and sticky and bulbous and at times girly, and the other one more stern and dark and austere. And I think that I'm just in the process of figuring out how they aid each other, and what their relationship to each other is. I had a trinket shelf. These are found and made objects. I have a bad habit of being a little bit of a hoarder, and my immediate response when given space is to fill it with as much stuff as possible. And so exploring that and exploring how objects can gain power through collection. Here's a little. And then the last piece that I'm going to talk about is my flail. This piece was the first that I made in the series, and it was kind of a nod to my first like visceral understanding of existing in a hierarchical social setting, which is navigating the world of prepubescent girls. I am constantly in the studio. I have my fingers in many different pots at the moment. I'm trying to just make as much as possible while I have studio access, and always, but been going a little bit ham. These are some pieces that are in progress right now. Things are happening. It's exciting. I am going to be in a group show. The opening is on May 13th. It is a group show of some graduating and senior fine arts students who are primarily based in the Oakland campus. It's kind of like a sayonara. I'm helping curate this, which has been an amazing, awesome experience. I expect to see every single one of you at the show. Okay. So what's next for Sophie? This is a great question, you guys. I kind of have this. No, this is serious in an actual like vision. I really, really am trying to start a artist collective and hopefully an attached, gallery space. I realized that I just want to make art with my friends and put on shows and continue to make art with my friends. And I think that that is one of like the most valuable things about being in art school is the community that you collect or belong to, and just like working alongside these people that inspire you and spark ideas is like paramount. So the wheels are starting to turn, and expect to see a Sophie Smith associated art collective gallery space sometime soon. And expect to see me on Forbes 30 Under 30. I would like to thank all of you guys for bearing with me. My contact information is on the screen. And lastly, enjoy a picture of me cleaning out the plaster traps. Thank you all so much.
Thanks, Sophie. I can't wait to go to the show.
Yeah,
It's going to be a hoot and a half.
Awesome.
So I'm going to go ahead and let some of our other respondents chime in before I do, because I think you've heard from me quite a bit, Sophie.
Thank you so much, Sophie, for introducing all of us to your work. Yeah, there's so much to dive into. I think when I was looking up some images from your show that CCA posted and really drawn to the trinkets shelf, kind of as like a way to navigate through the space. And I love how you were talking a little bit about like the trinkets as like, you're like, oh no, that's my like hoarding space, like coming to the public's eye. But I also think of like as artists, we're archivists and we're collectors, and that's not necessarily a bad thing. And being able to kind of like see the trinkets as like a context or as like a map for understanding your work was something really helpful and interesting to me. Only wish that I could like get up really close and see the details. But yeah, I don't know. I wonder too about like if those trinkets might be like a way of bridging these two kind of like parts of your practice that seem like right now in opposition, but appear to the public's eye and to me as like very much in conversation. And maybe that's like a way that like those little objects in the glass house come out and are like touching or becoming those like bubbly, gooey parts, and really like following through with your desire of them being in conversation. So yeah, those were some of my initial thoughts, and yeah, again, congratulations on this body of work, and excited to see what happens next. Yeah, we should talk about collective run spaces and galleries, so save that for later.
Thank you so much. Absolutely.
Sophie, I'm so happy to get to meet you before you leave CCA. As interim chair of sculpture, I just feel so excited for you and for the way that you also are presenting and talking about your work. I felt like you led us through your work in a super engaging, very humorous, confident way that made me feel like you're going to be able to do the things you want to do. And I loved how you started with LA. I love how you talked about where you came from and the kind of the groove of LA a little bit. It made me think about, like, when I think of LA now, I think about LA influencers, because it's such a thing down there. And I thought about, what would Sophie be an influencer of? You know, like there's a, I don't know if you're going to go back there, but it made me think about a kind of way that you have of drawing us into your thinking and your work. And it's a strategy, you know, and it's an interesting strategy. Your titling is also a really interesting strategy. So the kind of commentary and critique of this world, you know, that you are also seriously part of, you know, thinking about your own psychology, you know, and the end of the world. And so I also loved your scale, you know, and pushing scale a little bit in different directions. And I guess I kind of just got that sense that you're sort of stretching material, you're also stretching your ideas, you know. Makes sense to me that you would stretch into collectivity, you know, because it's a really high functioning way to think about succeeding in the world after school, you know, is joining forces with like minds so that you can have a good time and you support each other, and you're going to learn a lot about how to get work out into the world, you know, as a group. So I was just really inspired and also kind of excited by your attitude. You know, I feel like you have a kind of humor and a kind of yeah, just a good, I just felt like a really good, interesting attitude about your work and next steps.
Thank you so much. I really
Sophie, I had a couple things, a couple phrases. I think you did a great job, and you have a way of talking about your sculptures in a way that makes me think about all objects and the objects that I make and I see. So you said, what gives an object power? You said that you think about the hierarchy of objects. And then later you said it has no apparent function. The way you describe the ceramic piece with the plug makes me laugh every time. because you talk about thinking it through, that if it was plugged in, that if it had a function, we would ignore the cord, but because it has no function, we pay attention to the cord. That thought process is kind of delightful. And I will also note, just as a teacher of lots of artists, that I appreciated that you were receptive when I came to help you with your first ceramic sculpture. I'm not sure I believe that with your first ceramic sculpture, but if you say so. It's such an odd thing, and I love that you plug it in. You're like asserting its lack of functionality, but suggesting that it functions. So anyway, that's just to say I like the way that you talk about that thing. And can you take us back to that little shelf of trinkets, please, in your presentation? There's something I wanted to point out. See that? Nope, go back one. The sand dollar. See that sand dollar? That's such a weird decision. Most people, when they find a sand dollar, they're like, oh, it's the most precious thing. It's perfect. And there's a way that you, I think, are looking at the objects or treating things that's much more sort of disrespectful in a positive way. It's like promiscuous or something like that. You took some lumpy, I don't know what that gray material is around the sand dollar, but it's kind of disrespectful to the sand dollar from a like a, I don't know. It's non-sentimental. That's what I like about it. On a shelf full of like sentimental things or something.
It feels very preserving to have it encased in like another material, like it's becoming more than it originally was. That's how I see it.
Yeah, I like that, Reed. Anyway, it's a small thing, but I think it speaks to the way you handle things in general.
It just needed a dumb little frame. It had to happen.
Yeah. Okay, well, congratulations on your show and your presentation. I look forward to your next adventure.
Thanks, you guys. I appreciate you all.
Thank
See
you.
Super cool, Sophie. I love all the new stuff that's happening, all the work in progress. That stuff looks really exciting.
Yeah, that looks like the morphing that's happening right now.
Yeah. The vision is unfurling. Revealing itself.
Always unfurling for the rest of your life.
And Sophie, please remind me later, and we'll connect you and Lucchesa offline about collectives.
Gorgeous.
Okay, thanks for that, Sophie. Our next artist to present will be Jay Torres. Where are you? There you are, Jay. Jay has some really ambitious work that I'm excited for them to share with you. And also, I think of the artists I worked with this semester, Jay, you had such an openness to your colleagues, and I really admired that about the way you presented yourself in class, being very receptive and genuinely bringing work to class that you really, in a very sincere way, asked for their feedback on. I remember some very productive conversations around your work. So thanks for that. And I will hand the screen to you.
Thank you. Thank you. All right. Let me get prepared. Oh, wait. Okay. Sorry, I took some extra steps that I wasn't supposed to.
It's okay.
All right. Can everybody see the screen?
Yep.
All right. So hi, my name is G. Torres. I'm graduating from the Individualized department. And I am from Dallas, Texas, born and raised. And since I was a kid, I've always loved using my hands to make whatever I wanted or whatever I could get my hands on, really. And I had a really supportive mother who would indulge my creative habits. My mom raised me to be proud and mindful of where I come from. There was a lot of weight para nopal que tengo on my forehead. She taught me the importance of my Mexican heritage and culture and emphasized the value of learning and history. So this piece I created, I made an homage to my mother, and in the process of making this piece inspired my interest in using cloth as a way to tell narrative. And the history of this vest holds is of perseverance and selflessness. The vest is older than me, and the wear and that the vest holds tells a history of my mother and the way that she carried as being a housekeeper and the trials and tribulations she's faced being an immigrant as well too. And so with that, thinking about cloth and like other artists that inspire me, Roz Ritter is a fiber artist and storyteller, and she's able to use like embroidery and imagery in her work to tell the narrative that she wants, and like using the physical like aspects of it in her work. And Deirdre Brackens as well, a textile artist and weaver. I really love the way that they go about using symbolism and imagery to tell narrative, and like the conversation that they have with the material as well too. And like the history of like cotton and that America has with it. And I think that's really important to think about material in that way and the poetics of it. And I also have been thinking about writers as well too. So a really important writer for me has been Francisco Exalacron. And he's a Chicano poet who's like widely known here in the US, just to be able to speak like 3 different languages, English, Spanish, and Nahuatl. And the poetry that he creates, he keeps these aspects of mind: recuerdo, remembrance; resistencia, resistance; and recreación, reinvention. And these aspects of mind, I've been trying to embed those within my work and approaching even my writing too in a different way, and being able to think of like ways to reinvent myself and my work and reinvent the history that just because of like colonialism and my own process of decolonizing, these aspects and ideas are what I try to embody and in my work. And especially looking through and like that history and like my journey through decolonizing, looking in the history of like my own selves and my ancestry and where that holds in both Texas and Mexico. And so while using different mediums, and so that's why I use different mediums to communicate this. And so here I have a weaving called Oya Buckaroo. And so the transformation of language through time. So I think it's really interesting that the word vaquero, which means cowboy, kind of like morphed into the word buckaroo, and kind of like how playful that word is used around, and kind of, and thinking about just the history that like cowboys, especially Black cowboys and, you know, vaqueros, and like thinking of Mexico and like kind of the segregation that it has, and kind of like how it's like morphed into something different, and celebrating that history as well through wearables. And so I created a vest out of that weaving in order to kind of like uphold and like thinking about like who's wearing it and who's being a part of it, and kind of like celebrating like these images as well. And so the 2 guys here, those vaqueros, they are inspired from norteñas, which is banda culture and like northern Mexico music. And so this is like really inspired, and I'm trying to like embody that within it, like using these guys. And thinking again more about like the relationship of like history, and like using history and like as a way to dictate the narrative that I try to embody in like the cloth that I work with. So this piece is called Seamless Change. And I was thinking about how snakes symbolize for me change. And indigo is used to, it's actually repels rattlesnakes specifically when in the workplace. And so that's why a lot of like blue jeans and blue denim is used in field work in a lot of ways. And so just thinking about like denim and like the history that it has here in America, and just being able to like think of like that resistance to change. And I wanted to like create like a conversation between like these 2 materials and like aspects. And so that's why you see the snakeskin like embedded on top of the denim. And so thinking about more how like cloth can be dictated, and like using my research in a way to dictate the design. This piece here is inspired by Winili binding, which is creating like sacred like cloth bundles and thinking about like how to create like a sacred cloth and to bind myself and reinventing and reinterpreting my history through a wearable piece like this. And so this here is meant to be a chest binder, and thinking about like the reformation, like the reconstruction that one goes through within queerness, being able to like showcase it in this way is something that has been like very much a very interesting process and like more digestible in order to look at the history and the work that I'm looking at and the research that I'm looking at too as well. And so thinking like sacred cloths and like what they mean. This piece here is inspired by La Virgen de Guadalupe, the Virgin Mary, and just kind of like the connections that she has within like the indigenous like community in Mexico, and also the history of like religion and Catholicism and kind of the destruction that it had, but also thinking about like even in that destruction and that erasure that it had with the indigenous culture and peoples, it also served as a way of comfort that brought, you know, like later on through generations who experienced that. And were impacted by colonialism in Mexico and the way that those beliefs carried on, kind of like how these beliefs and like the core values of the Virgin being of life and fertility and like celebrating like life, and how those beliefs like carried on like my ancestors as well as other people's ancestors to exist where we are today, and why she's so celebrated. And the words on the cloth say "Venerare tu ser en vida," which means I will venerate your being in life. And so honoring those before me in order and bringing them forward. And so I think about the importance of being able to celebrate these peoples and like this, my culture as well too. And being able to uplift these voices and like the people before me was really important within this piece, and thinking about change as well and how like throughout time that change has happened, and embedding like the image of the snake and the heart as well too, being able to like wear that like on one's hands and like, yes. And going more into my writing, thinking about it all, I use these blue jeans, and in this sequence here, it's a sequence of how they unfold, and using them as like a way to kind of talk a little bit more about my own experiences within like Chicano culture. And I, through these like writing, it's inspired again by Francisco Alagron, and I wanted to like create a conversation of how cloth is able to hold like narrative. And what am I doing next? And so I'll be a part of a writing workshop that is through the Queer Ancestors Project and Still Here SF. And so I want to like further my writing skills and kind of further my research as well too into my own like into history, as well as my own ancestry, and you know, focusing on like writing outside of an academic setting and just like having a lot more fun with it. And I want to focus on myself in that way, and beginning hopefully curating a whole show too as well for the people and like the work that we'll be writing. And so I'm really excited to coordinate a show in order to highlight more people of color, especially because I feel like in the setting, there's been many times where not a lot of people have been able to have the opportunity to show and like voice their history and voice their ideas as well. And I really am excited to be able to be a part of this and hopefully curate a show soon after whenever we're done. And yeah, and you can contact me at my email, and I also have a website and my Instagram as well too. So yeah, thank you guys so much for listening. I really appreciate everyone coming out and supporting.
Great, thanks, Jay. Really appreciate seeing your work again, even though I have seen it before.
Yes, thank you so much for this introduction to your work. And yeah, what astonishing work. It feels like a true honor to be introduced in this way, and hopefully to continue to follow your work. I was thinking a lot about how the word text is in textiles, and how the ways that you're thinking a lot about like the literal, like our weaving work is our writing work, is our like sacred work, is our like belonging work. And yeah, really the incredible ways that you also articulate all these components and layers of your practice in a way that it feels like you're talking about a poem, and then you're also talking about a jacquard weaving. I'm thinking about the first piece that you showed us, the vest, the embroidered vest to your mom, with the text, I believe, in the back. I'm thinking about the, like how we like sew ourselves into history, and sew like our memories into being, like being an object. Because it's one thing to share it in a poem or in something that's like on a page or that's ephemeral, but it's another thing to have these memories and unseen or often unseen histories become an object that we know belongs on our bodies. And so that was really striking and moving and important for me to see as a kind of like portal into understanding your work. And yeah, I'm like, I can't wait to see what happens next. I'm so glad that you're going to be a part of the Queer Ancestors Project. That's such an incredible project that happens in the Bay, and feels like this way that you're going to like continue writing, to continue weaving, to continue kind of like bridging all these parts of yourself together. And yeah, I was just jotting down notes of folks that I want to connect you with, some incredible Chicano CCA alums that are around in the Bay that are doing print and textile work and community-based work. And yeah, I'll pass it on, but thank you so much, Jay. What an honor to greet your work tonight.
Thank you so much. Thank you.
Hi, Jay. It's really good to see you again. I think we had a class with Brian before everything went lockdown, I believe.
Yes.
So it's really nice to see what's taken place over the last couple of years. I feel really excited to see how things have evolved. And, you know, I think some of the things that I knew were sort of percolating in your work then, I really just see how they've expanded and deepened. And I really thought a lot about your work as a kind of scholarship today, listening to you. And that your writing and your making, I could really see it leading for you in some really interesting sort of deep research ways moving forward. That feels like there's a lot of potential there for writing, for research, for publication, for thinking about your work as sort of cultural production, not only making art objects. And I also really deeply felt the kind of ethical approach to ideas and culture embedded in your work, you know, thinking about remembrance, resistance, and reinvention. You know, I think that there's, thinking about indigeneity, about your lineage, your line. You know, there's a kind of way that the language that you're bringing to the work and what the work is doing in the world has a real ethical sort of framework to it that I feel is really deeply moving, actually, and meaningful. And it also has politics embedded in it, and it also has a kind of storytelling. I was really taken by just the storytelling in your work. And the history of textiles as being a forum for women to tell stories, whether they were visible or invisible, or a way to make certain opinions public, right? So I like that these wearables are public. I'm thinking about public art. I'm thinking about the private and the public. I'm thinking about the body as a kind of place of having a voice. So all those things, and then I think a lot about, in my own practice, I'm thinking about context. So I'm thinking about where those works are worn, and where those sacred tapestries are hung, and I think that would be an exciting thing for you to keep thinking and pushing in your work is the context, how do these works actually are situated in the world, and where are they most meaningful, or where do they interrupt meaning, and create a kind of new narrative, right? A retelling, right? So those are just a few of the things that I sort of received in these few minutes, and I think you have a very rich practice, really exciting. Congratulations.
Thank you, Suzanne.
Jay, one of the things that I didn't see in our class was the jeans that folded, that were a kind of a book. Can you go back to that image?
Yes.
I know it's nice to go back through them again.
I really appreciated this work because
Yeah.
I didn't recognize it as a book at first. I thought you had drawn text on different sides of a pair of jeans. And then when I understood that it was meant to be folded and unfolded, that really meant a lot to me. I think because it's something that I fold every week and I don't think about it as a book. And I know you have a specific history that you're referring to with a denim, but denim's also really universal in a certain way. Anyway, there's just something about that sort of you looking at this garment, this object in a different way that changes. It's something that we fold all the time, but I don't think about it like a book. I think that's exactly what I said before, which is it's resonating with me, that it's kind of echoing in my brain. So I just want to point that out, that I really appreciated this. And, Suzanne was referring to the ethics in your work and the storytelling. And I think it's a great step for you to do some curating. And I want to note that one of the loudest times I heard you speak in the semester when we were having a group discussion where you and I, obviously, we had different perspectives, not necessarily points of view, but different perspectives on the staff union and the strike. And I really appreciated the things that you had to say then and the clarity with which you said them. And I think that kind of concern for other people and values really comes through in the work that you're making. So, and I can tell that our other respondents are seeing that as well. So I think that's something I don't know if you recognize that or if you see that in yourself, but it's something to kind of hold on to as central to your practice that other people are witnessing in your work.
Thank you. Thank you so much. Yeah, I'm really excited about the writing workshop and being able to, talk to people around and, get a show going. And, I know a lot of other artists who are working along these lines, and it'd be really exciting to, put together both this visual language and written language together in a setting.
I think that's the magic of doing curatorial work and being an artist, is being able to have the curatorial work be this soup of all these aspects of yourself. And I always think about how curatorial work or cultural work is political work, because how could it not be? Because it's bringing all these perspectives and different ideas together to kind of form a new environment or a new ecosystem. So yeah, I'm excited to see where that leads you, but it feels like all you're curatorial clues are right in front of you in your practice.
Thank you. Thank you so much.
All right. Thanks, Jay. Really appreciate that. Okay. Our next artist for the evening is Arina Kole. And like I said about everyone, Arina, I've really enjoyed getting to understand your work and you as an artist. And I think what might come out, one of the things that might come out is I don't think you're anywhere behind anyone else in terms of advancing your practice, but the way your material approach, like your materials kind of shifted slightly later, which I find really interesting, but you're bringing, you just have a different approach to it, like where you're coming at sort of the object making and the storytelling of it. So I'm excited for you to share it with people. It's really beautiful work.
Thank you, Nathan. And you are very right. I basically do everything my own way. But all right, let's start. Sorry. Okay. So I'm a woman of many last names, and for my creative practice, I chose Kole for now. So if you have better suggestions, I'm open. I'm individualized major and writing and literature minor. And here is baby me. I come from Russia, but I think at this point, a quarter of my life I spent in the US. And this is me at upstate New York with my first exhibition. And when I was thinking, I think I started going to different like art schools since I was 3. So I was always making something at the drawing or writing. And I knew that nothing else is going to work for me other than creative practice. So, but I also wanted, or rather was pushed to make a decision to choose a career path that will be applicable once I graduate. So I did this little mascot thing that you can see in the right side of the screen, and I was like, graphic design, that's what I'm gonna do, graphic design. So I came into CCA 7 years ago as a graphic designer, and you can see how happy I was with my choice on the slide here. But what I was doing on the side, and not necessarily for my projects, but just for myself, is combining images and text. And in retrospect, I understand how important it was to be doing that. So unfortunately, after my first semester, I had to, the financial crisis in Russia happened, so I had to leave. And during those 5 years, I've been a teacher, a tattoo artist, a manager at the hookah place, director of correspondence at like mid-century furniture design company. So, and then one November, I was like, I cannot be doing this any longer. So I decided to come back to CCA, and that was at the beginning of 2020. So I came back to CCA with this sort of stuff, which I didn't necessarily have any deep, profound meanings to. And my desktop looked like that. So I used my individualized major as the way to navigate my many passions. So I was doing illustration, film, writing, performance, and not necessarily with the goal inside to combine them, but rather choose what is that I want to focus on. Because still, like, that narrative that there is no way for an artist outside of school was very prevalent. And during, so as my creative influences, I would most certainly consider the band The National, because music is super important to me, and you will never see me without my headphones, other than maybe right now or while I'm in class. But I don't play any instruments. I just started learning the guitar. I don't really sing. So naturally what I focus on is the lyrics. And the way in which The National bring, they're being very vulnerable and exposing shared human experience through exploration, or like exploring shared human experience through exploration of individual one. And when I discovered them, it was the first time I felt understood and really seen. And if in my practice I can do that for one single person, I would consider myself a successful creative practitioner. And especially considering that I come from the culture where speaking or being vulnerable, if it's not forbidden, it's definitely not really welcomed. And I believe that it leads to a lot of isolation and destruction. So for me to be honest in my work and exploring really deep, profound, and complex ways in which our psyche and our culture is structured is very, very important. And through The National, I discovered Mike Mills, who is also very much concerned with the same sort of notions. And his work is very tender, and he approaches complex subjects and treating them with such care. And during my time at CCA, I was exposed to a lot of literally fiction and nonfiction, which was also preoccupied with self-exploration, interpersonal relationships, and stuff like that. And when I read Michael's Ondaatje Borlight, and especially this passage right there, I was like, that's all I want to be doing. Like, if I can write like this, like, that's all I want to be doing. And so at CCA, I was taking illustration classes, as I mentioned before, but again, very much focusing on really developing the skills. And while I was doing that, I was obviously taking classes like concepts, and which had me thinking of a more of a meaning of the work. So through that, my work became more and more conceptual. And I was doing performance, and this one is called Code Switching, which was a part of my show. It involves this mask here, which has to do again with the past self back home and moving abroad and really discovering myself, discovering my place, and really blooming. And the part of the performance was also text. And from there, since my work also very focused on the conversation between interior and exterior and how they both affect each other, I came up with this project, which also was influenced by John Cage I Ching series, which I have my own personal problems with John Cage, but I think it's very important to invite chance into your work and intuition and something unstructured, because I feel like this is how life operates largely. And the next slide is just an excerpt from one of the videos. And so the concept of this video is the idea behind recording the days and recording your life, because especially during the pandemic, it was essential practice for many people, and especially artists, to ground themselves in the moment. And the idea is that every time you look at the clock, if the numbers are even, you write down the thought that you have at the moment. And when the numbers are odd, you write something in your surroundings, which allows for this, I guess, holistic approach and unfiltered recording of memory. So the next slide is an excerpt from one of the videos, and it's February 25th, and is the day after the war between Russia and Ukraine broke out. So there you go.
My skin is red. Water against it is warm and hot. Underwear, socks, jeans, t-shirt, jacket, boots. I pull myself into it. It's fine. It's fine. It's fine. It's all will be fine. It's fine.
So also, the more time I spend at CCA, the more emails like this I started getting. And I think it was this whole process of me really trying to find, giving more time and energy into finding my focus started after junior review, where I asked what people thought my strongest medium was, and somebody said my voice. So when I started, and also the emails like that made me realize all I want to focus on, at least right now, is writing. And then I also realized that's what my workspace looked like. So yeah, and from there I started taking grad level writing courses and just diving into that discipline, and produce a lot of work, short stories, creative fiction, nonfiction, and even poems. And here you can see some of them and excerpts. But recently I've been also focusing on journalistic pieces. And I'm very excited for that, to keep moving in that direction, because I also think that my diverse background allows me to find new perspectives. And yeah, so what's next? I am hoping to take at least a week off and doing absolutely nothing, preferably somewhere on the beach, but who knows. I'm also working on the research which is focused on how politics and censorship influence the collective psyche and shape social landscape in the context of Russian literature in 20th century. It's a big work, but I'm excited about it. And I'm looking for writing jobs, and I have a concept for a novel, and I just finished my first draft of my first chapter yesterday. And I'm hoping to develop that more, so I have a material to go to residences with, and then MFA, and then I'm hoping just for fun to start a gallery in my backyard. So yeah, thank you so much for being here. This is my contact points, and I hope I didn't go over time. So yeah, thank you.
All right, thanks, Arina. I think you're fine on the time. And I don't know if we will talk about it today, but Lucchesa once started a gallery in her kitchen nook, which was an inspiration to lots of other people. So
For me too.
Yes, lots of backyard DIY backyard gallery talk to be had. Excited for that. Yeah, thank you so much for this work. Some things that I wrote down were through lines, time making and how we mark time. I mean, I get asked a lot as an interdisciplinary artist, like people are like, what is your specialty? Like what, you know, and I feel like that's such a outdated question because our specialty is that we're artists and creative thinkers and can look at worlds in such different ways. And that being the material that you focus in. And so I'm just here to like reinforce and support and call out how important it is to not pick one medium. You know, like I mean, nothing against picking a medium, but I think we're so not trained to pick our thought and our voice as our medium. And I think you're doing that in such really clear, I see you working through it, but also strong ways. That moment kind of towards the end of the presentation where you spoke about like we're asking people what they thought your like best or strongest medium was and people thinking your voice. And right as you were saying that, I wrote down voice because your voice and your kind of like the soundtrack to this newest series of videos was something that I think because there was less to look at visually, I was then like greeting your voice like I would greet a painting or an image, and really like understanding all that it was bringing to that work. And also that like that, I don't know, I'm such a like ritual maker myself and love this this through line of marking time from the start of the pandemic as one like shift in our landscape to then thinking about the like shift in the landscape through this war being started and I don't know what it means to kind of like hold the pandemic shift and also this like pandemic of wars as this other kind of like shift and way of marking time. So a lot of things that I see you like kind of like playing with and then also just like creating as a way to process, which I relate to deeply. And yeah, I appreciated seeing that snippet and we'll look into maybe seeing more of that footage. But yeah, wow, yeah, the future feels like, I hope that it like supports and carries all of these dreams and all of this like yumminess that you're feeling right now in your practice after the week of the beach time, maybe 2 weeks.
Yes,
more than a week. But yeah, that this like excitement and this fresh work continues in all these different avenues that you're interested in bringing it in. So yeah, thank you so much.
Yeah. Thank you.
That's so great, Lucchesa. I loved your comments. I'm going to the beach with you, Arina, or parallel beach. I'm like so there. Good idea. And it's good to know when to take a break, for sure. But, you know, I was just really compelled by your story and how like life continued to interrupt, you know, and we all know this too with like the pandemic now and wars, you know, these kind of interruptions and ruptures, but that you also, it's so clear that you're an artist. You know, you found your way back to CCA and you also use this kind of break that, you know, this sort of break-in of life as material. You know, it sort of leads your work out into the world, you know, and it also, you sort of use it as material, right? So in this way, I really, it's actually a really great strategy for working and continuing to work, is you use what's going on in the world, right? You use your own experience. So that's really exciting. And it's also, I think, already leading you in really interesting ways, right? So I wrote down, I really loved how you talked about shared human experience through the individual life, through the individual experience. And I really love this quote. I don't know if I wrote it down right or wrong, but it went something like this: if not forbidden, it is not welcome. But there was something about the forbidden and the not welcome that were adjacent to each other that was just so, I just really started feeling like the poet in you. You know, you're a writer, but there's also a kind of poetic approach to making and life. And I think that it's, I just started feeling that in your work. And I also then think about the poet or the artist as the public intellectual, someone who's sort of digesting time and of giving it back to us in ways that we can think about it again. And it made me think about your writing and where your writing might be heading, and this desire, this way that you're thinking about writing about, you know, real events that are going on in the world, right? And so there's some sort of very deep thinking, deep feeling that is just in you. It just feels like it's in you, and you're churning and processing a lot of the stuff that we are, you know, that we're all wrestling with, you know. And I love this, I like Lucchese, I really like these structures that you started to give your work. And even maybe, impose is not the quite right word, but to use structures as a way to organize time and to organize activity also was really exciting around the pandemic. And also thinking about others, right? Thinking about what other people could do to like be inside this weird moment and have a different kind of experience. So also felt like, wow, like maybe an MFA could come really quick. I mean, you took a long break from school. I'm just be curious, you know, when that MFA comes in, because there's, it almost feels like, as someone who's teaching grad students, and I would say this to everyone who's presenting, you know, I see you already, I see you on a kind of trajectory of a kind of skill level and sophistication of some of our grads. So I just want to give you all a little bit of that feedback. I'm probably going on way too long, but I thank you for the work. I congratulate you. Very excited. Very excited.
Thank you. Thank you so much. I really appreciate it. Thank you, Suzanne.
Yeah. Welcome.
Nathan, I think you're muted.
Thank you. Thank you. While Lucchese was saying, don't pick one thing, I was writing down, don't give up on the video, or don't give up the looking. And it's not that I really appreciate your writing. And there's something about the photographs and the videos that I wouldn't say I like them, because it's not, they draw me in, which I think is better than sort of liking them as aesthetic, like as pictures. So I think there's something about the eye and the way you look at things that as you continue writing, I want you to continue. I just want your desk to be organized like it was, but have those confluence of ideas stay there. So I think Lucchese is right that you should not, you know, keep that medley of things that you're doing. Don't feel like you have to do one thing. And there's also just a funny combination, I guess. A nice thing to say about you is the two, if you look at the chat, the two things that Lucchese recorded while Suzanne was talking was beach gallery and rupture material.
Ooh.
So as way, these conversations are sometimes a way of crystallizing or seeing like really the seed of what your work is about or what you're like as an artist. And I think those are nice moments for you to, I'm just pointing them out so you can see them in the chat in case you wouldn't otherwise. But congratulations and thanks for sharing your work with us.
Thank you so much. That was great. Thank you.
Okay, our last artist is already clapping for his colleague. Daniel Zhou, I don't know. I haven't met until today. And Daniel, I just want to tell you that, boom, as soon as you come on the screen, there's something about the way you speak and your energy, even through Zoom, that I'm like, well, I want to meet that guy.
Cool. Thank you so much. Yeah, good to meet
So
you.
welcome, and we're excited to see your work.
Sweet, thank you. Yeah, let me just get my stuff ready real quick. Get my screen shared. Cool. You guys see this all right? Cool. All right. So yeah, my name is Daniel Zhou. Oh wait, sorry. Let me just get my my video optimized real quick. Sorry. All right, cool. So my name is Daniel Zhou. I'm an indie major and I'm about to graduate. And my practice is centered in animation and illustration. And I'm also really interested in comics as well. So for some background, I'm a second generation immigrant. My parents came here from China in like 1997. And I grew up in the Silicon Valley, Cupertino, California, which is where Apple is. And like growing up, like both my parents were like working all the time. My mom had to like commute like to San Francisco every day because she worked in like tax and like business. Like she was like like an accountant, and my dad was like a software engineer. So I had a lot like I grew up as an only child, so I had a lot of time and like space on my hands. So and I spent a lot of that time like going to the local public library in my neighborhood growing up, and I would spend like so many afternoons in the like in the comic section, like reading Garfield and like Calvin and Hobbes and just like a lot of like manga. So I was like exposed to that stuff like from a really young age, but I didn't realize that I actually like growing up when I did art, I didn't think that I could like be making any of that stuff that I really loved consuming like throughout my life. But I think around when high school came around, I found out that there were people like pursuing like similar or like pursuing careers where they would be like making cartoons and drawing comics and just pursuing that kind of thing. And I thought to myself, like, if these people can do it, like, why can't I do it too? So I went to CCA pre-college to like to study animation for a couple of weeks, summer of 2016, and then 2017 I went to the California State Summer School for the Arts in Valencia, and there I studied animation as well. So like I began to be like really interested in like pursuing a career in animation, but then I learned about like comics and like illustration. I started reading a lot of like indie comics. Like here we have Garfield, who's like a childhood favorite. But then like I found out about like a lot of like indie comics, like in the indie comic scene, because there's a comic shop called Wow Cool Alternative Comics. Like it's funny the title, like they they call themselves Wow Cool. But like I found out about a lot of really cool indie comic artists, like Sophia Foster Domino, who's like the image in the middle that I'm showing. Really cool like queer comics artist, and then Michael DeForge, who's like one of my favorite like indie comic artists as well. Uh, but yeah, I dove like pretty deep into that. So I'll start out by showing you guys some of my illustration work. This piece is called. Oh wait, oh no, sorry. I realized I was gonna like talk about my practice also, but I like to work with still and moving images that like often stylistically borrow from childhood ephemera and the surreal. And through it, I like to explore, observe, and capture things I experience in my everyday life, things about the mundane, the absurd things that I experience, childhood memories. A lot of nostalgia is factored into my work, I think. But yeah, this piece is called Sleepy Gordito. It's like my partner was showing me images of their dog, and I just thought, like, I don't know, like this one picture had like a really whimsical feel to it. They looked so sleepy, so I just drew them in like sort of like a dreamlike landscape. Uh, this was for like a screen printing class like I took a while ago. This piece is called Lunchtime. It's just about like having fun, or not having fun, but just having lunch with friends and just taking the time to like enjoy good food with like people you care about in your life. This I submitted this to the Society of Illustrators like competition. Like I think a year or two ago, like the student scholarship competition, and I got like an honorable mention for it. So that was pretty cool. This is a piece I made like a really long time ago, but still connect to when I was like graduating high school. Yeah, it's just about like parting ways with people and like just finding your way in life. Uh, this piece is called Pizza Dream, and it's just about, or I was just thinking about like the relationships I have with like things in my environment. Uh, yeah, and here we're coming to like a section where I'll be showing you guys like some of my oh wait, sorry, I'll come back to this one. But this one's called Smoke Break. Just some just a drawing of a person smoking and like making like cool like shapes and like cartoons with their smoke. This piece is called Yanlei, and which and Yanlei means tears like in Chinese, and it's kind of about like intergenerational trauma and just yeah, like that whole thing. Yeah, and yeah, I put this slide in the wrong section, but this is like a piece about like growing up reading comics and like having or like and having fun like hiding comics like in a textbook, because like my mom, like growing up, my mom would check on me and like make sure that I was like studying and like not goofing off, but like I don't know, I was like really absorbed into like comics and just animation and just I don't know, it was just the whole world that I like loved escaping to. But yeah, here I'll start showing some animation stuff. This is a film I worked on called When You Were a Mountain, and I made this like during like the middle of COVID, because I was living at home and my parents were going through like a divorce. So I was kind of making this film to process like a lot of feelings that I had just like regarding all that. Yeah. Uh, this is just like a small clip of it though, just to show you guys like the visuals, because uh like the film itself is like it's like 2 or 3 minutes long, and it might be a little bit too long to show. But here's like a loop of called Pato, and my partner gave me like a little green rubber duck, and I don't know, I it just has like a lot of personality and character to it. I love this little guy, so I was like, man, I really want to see this guy come to life and like kind of envision like the kind of space that or that they might like inhabit. So like I animated them over like a video recording of a neighborhood. I'll play a couple seconds of this. Yeah, so that's Pato. I made the music for that as well. I like making tunes on the side, like when I'm not drawing and making comics and stuff. this film, I also made during the pandemic, like right when the pandemic started. It's mostly about how like taking showers during that period of time was like my one kind of escape into like just like the natural world. Like I was stuck in my room like for most of the time. I feel like it was hard getting out because I was living in the dorms at the time as well. And it's just about like how nice taking a shower was during that period of time when it was when like COVID came about. Um, I'll play the whole thing since it's just like a minute or so long. It's not finished, but like this is like a sort of like animatic. This is just like the first couple. You know, actually, this is probably just the fourth of it. Sorry. Yeah, that's just like the first couple of seconds of it. Yeah. Uh, and then here's a film that I'm my senior thesis film because I'm also part of the animation program. So this is like an animatic, which is like a rough cut that hasn't been fully animated yet of my senior thesis film. I'm gonna be showing it at the senior like animation like showcase. So feel free to come to that if you guys want to see like the full thing. But here's like a rough cut.
初めてだねこうやって顔見てお話しする
Cool. So yeah, that was like a rough cut. It's about like a biker, like kind of going on a trip because of like their energy drink. Cool. Yeah. And here now we're on the comics section of my work. So like around like probably pretty late in high school, I started making comics. Just because I started reading a lot of lots of cool indie comics, and I was like, man, like I have lots of ideas too. This one's called Turkey. It's about again like having food with your friends and like just taking time to kind of like just be in the moment and to like not like stress out about things like all the time and just be present and enjoy things while you can. I'll stay on this slide for a couple seconds so you guys can read it. Cool. Yeah, and then this one's called Makeout Interlude. It's a risograph, like a risograph comic that I made for an anthology that this band called Died Sig is doing. They're like a kind of like an indie like twee band, but they had like an open call for that. So I made it like a risograph comic that was like then printed and bound together with a bunch of other artists' work. This one's called Garf Comic. So like probably around like a year or so ago, there was this like, or I guess maybe this has been going on for years, but there's been like a phenomenon where toy Garfield phones from the 80s had been washing up like on the shores of France for a while for the past couple of years because like a ship capsized, and only recently like some storm or hurricane must have like blown a lot of their shipment like onto like a lot of like some beaches like in France. And I saw a tweet that said we live in the ruins of superior generations, and it was just like an image of like a Garfield toy phone, and I was like, man, this is really funny. I'm gonna make a like a comic about it, and like play with scale. And yeah, I love Garfield. Like Garfield's the best. This is a comic, or this is a comic called Good Luck Have Fun that I did about like making friends online and like just finding like connection where you don't expect it. I made this comic for there's an indie comics publisher in England, in the UK, called Shortbox, and they reached out to me because they found my Garfield comic on Twitter. They're like, hey, like you want to make like an 8-page comic for our Patreon, which is like during the pandemic, they found that was like a good platform for them to publish comics on. So yeah, I did like an 8-pager with them, and yeah, like I had a really good time making this. Here's two panels just to give you guys like some details. Yeah, had a lot of fun making this. I've been playing like this Pokemon online Pokemon games like probably since like middle school, like on and off, and it's just about like connecting with people like over things that you wouldn't expect, like online, in an online space. Uh, and then this comic is like one of the more recent works that I'm showing. I'm just calling it fishing for now because I can't really think of anything else. But a friend of mine named Christian Costello, he runs like he and a couple other friends of his are part of a indie comics like group anthology collective in the Bay Area called Freak Comics, and they've been putting out really cool stuff for a while. And he reached out to me to like make some work for like their latest like anthology that they're going to print like in a month or so, I think. But this is going to be risograph printed also. I'm doing 3 colors. But yeah, like I've taken up like a hobby of fishing recently. Like it's a lot of fun. I haven't had as much time for it lately, but I mean for obvious reasons. I'm about to graduate like in a week. But yeah, this comic is about sort of an experience that that 2 friends might have like while fishing. They catch something and then they lose it, and then they're like, screw it, we're going to lunch now. But yeah, had a lot of fun making that. And that concludes this part of this. But I guess now we have the question of what I'm gonna do next. So like I've probably like 9 months ago or something, I started working at Silver Sprocket, which is like a really cool like comics publisher and a bookstore on Valencia in the Mission District in San Francisco. And I've been working with them for a while, and I'm like, after I graduate, like I'm gonna try to like pitch some projects to them, like maybe make some more long format comics, because I've been really wanting to make like longer narratives for a while. I think the longest I've made is probably like this one, which is like 8 pages. But yeah, I've had a lot of fun doing that. So like really want to like pitch some stuff to them. And also I've been making like these little like figurines, and I'd love to make like art toys, like collectibles, like this little banana dog guy. So I want to spend more time doing that. And also my show is going on right now, so it's going to be up for like another day tomorrow and probably Saturday as well. So if you guys want to come by and see that, feel free. It's at the Isabel Percy West Galleries, but yeah, that's where I'm at
Thank you, Daniel.
for sure.
Really great to see all your work.
Thank you. Yeah.
Yes. What a perfect way to close out and hold this evening. I'm just thinking about, I put this in the chat, but when you were talking about the animation that you made about the shower being this like special holy time of the early days of the pandemic, I totally relate. And
Yeah, definitely.
I think that's like something that is so beautiful about your practice, that you're like able to transport us to these like special intimate moments in our life that are like fishing, or like the frog object that you were given, like maybe these everyday moments or everyday objects that are just integrated into our lives, but that you're able to like give context and give a story and really name as something that is important to document.
For sure.
And I was just loving that you kind of entered into your art practice through libraries.
Yeah.
Libraries are this special, radical, shared space that we all go to libraries, you know, like we all are practicing this like collective sharing of literature and of storytelling from a very young age, but we don't necessarily think anything of it.
Right.
The fact that that's like, you keep coming back to libraries and now you're working at a press and are really influenced and spent so much time in comic stores and through graphic novels, like, yeah, just love the way that you're talking about like where and how you get your content from.
Thank you so much. Yeah,
Yeah,
places with books are holy places for sure.
Oh, it's true. And if books don't exist that hold our stories, we create them.
Definitely.
And that's what you're doing. Yeah, I mean, there are so many parts of your presentation that I found myself like giggling to myself or like smiling real big because it felt like it was a mirror to something that I had experienced.
Sweet. That means a lot. Yeah.
And I was thinking about like, I don't know if this is thought about and taught about through animation, but or even comics, but thinking a lot about this like imagining other worlds and kind of like processing what those futures or utopias look like through the art that you make. I was just rereading Queer Utopia, Jose Esteban Munoz for my thesis, and really thinking about like queer futurity in its like alignment with like graphic novels, imagining other worlds.
Sweet.
I'm not sure if you're familiar with his work, but something.
No, but I'll definitely have to check it out. Thank you for the recommendation.
Yeah. I can put it in the chat too.
Sweet, yeah, that'd be great.
But yeah, just all this kind of like overlaying of the futures that you're living in, that your ancestors couldn't even dream of, that are also ways that we like work towards other futures. So yeah, it was really inspiring to kind of see my mind go to those places through your work.
Sweet. Yeah, thank you so much.
Daniel.
Oh, Daniel, I was so happy to see your work. I just felt really delighted by your presentation and your language and, you know, also your empathy and your vulnerability and the way, how much you shared with us. And you mentioned, we don't have to dig into all of this, but I was really struck when you talked about nostalgia in your work.
Mhm.
I think that would be really interesting thing to look into more deeply. Like, how does that come through, and what's your strategy, and how do you feel, what's nostalgic, and how does that feel?
Right.
And I was, I was also really struck by that very first image of you, of the sword and the towel as your cape, and your hat is really awesome. I really like the hat that you're wearing. And
Thank you.
I just got such a sense of like, a kind of innocent play, but also being able to really target human experience, like some deep, kind of common human experiences, which I think as a storyteller, that's like the gift, and to be able to, through humor, through this pictorial representation, you have a lot of humor in the way that you put images together. Still images, like I can't wait to see like more animation or a film. Like I could see, I just could see, like I can't wait to see a whole story that you would tell.
Right. For sure.
Because I feel like I'm seeing all these like pieces of like, of a lot of potential, to tell a deep and beautiful story.
Cool.
And then when music showed up in your work, I got really excited. Like, I think that music and having this kind of full experience with, that film and animation can bring us. I can't wait to see what you're going to do more with that. And the shower kind of blew me away, just like the cloud formations, how you take us inside, just poignant, poignant. And also, we all want to, like, what are these moments that we get to escape, where there's like, we can actually get to, other places that are, inside, these kind of difficult places that we're living in,
Right.
So I don't know, resilience, human experience feels like it's, there's something you have to say about that, in your work and in your life. And there's one of the, oh my God, the bike trip, that's pretty cool.
Sweet.
I mean, there's so many different looks going on in there. I don't know how you're going to bring them all together, but
Right.
it's interesting that there's so many different kind of feels and looks to the images.
Mhm.
And, Pato, I mean, a lot of work you showed. You've been busy. I see that. And that's really, really exciting.
Sweet.
Pato was also, your love for the green duck.
I love it. I do love it. It's
powerful.
right here.
Yeah, the
Yeah,
love
it's
for the
right
green duck
here.
and the way he was moving through that space, that was really, I don't know, just super delightful, but also really engaging. Yeah. I could, you guys are making me happy tonight.
Sweet.
All for you. Thank you, Daniel, for being the last, and great presentation of the night.
For sure. Thank you so much, Suzanne, for your words, and you too, Kaza. Yeah, I really appreciate it.
You are welcome.
Suzanne was just talking about the different styles. That's something that I wrote down as well, that there's a style shift and a fluidity to the way you're working. And I especially like the ones where the foreground would seem to be totally different from the background, not just in the duck, but I noticed it a couple of other places. And then, the most charming moment is when the duck stops at the stop sign.
Oh, right.
Good,
Yeah, that
good.
was very much intentional.
So if he fall off the chair, that was the moment.
Sweet.
Anyway, thanks for bringing such great energy to this, Daniel. And
Thank you so much, Nathan.
yeah, it's great to meet you. Before you leave, and I'll go check out your show.
Thank you. Yeah.
Thanks
I
to
really
all the
appreciate
artists
that.
for presenting tonight. We really appreciate the effort you put into this. And I also want to say for being strong, resilient people, for being in college through the pandemic.
Oh my God.
It is not a light thing to do and to take on. And I didn't hear people complaining this semester, you know, so thanks for your positive attitude and resilience. I have great admiration for all of you for doing that.
Look what you accomplished in the midst of all of that.
Yeah, absolutely.
Incredible.
Bravo, bravo.
Have you,
Such force to bring with you in this, well, continued pandemic, but future post undergrad.
have you, all, I'm sure you've been in Zooms where people went like this, like we're touching hands, right?
Oh.
But in class, sometimes we link arms physically. So what if we put our arms all the way out, like we're reaching over to the next person's shoulders? There we go. It'll make a little chain. Reach all the way across, Sophie. There we go. All right. We did that exercise one time when we were just talking about like that's how you make your art life after school, is the people that you're standing next to. And I think you all are in many ways doing it already, but.
And our old friend Ted used to say, it doesn't really matter, you know, what really matters most is just meeting more and more artists, because they will turn you on to the next things. And we could include curators in that too, but it's more, the more artists you know, the better.
I agree. And here we are. We know each other.
Yeah. And we're happy. Thanks, everyone.
Thank you.
Congratulations.
Thank you, Lucrezia.
Thank you.
Thank you, everyone.
Thank you for your time.
Okay,
Bye.
Yes, to be continued.
All right.